live. So, hi everyone, welcome to today's session, and we are so glad you're here today to come learn with us. And I'm just going to be, my name is Steven, by the way, and with some moderators right here. So I'm just going to be going through today's agenda quickly to help you segue into the session today. So today's agenda, we're going to be going through why you're here. Of course, it's all about you and what value you can get from today's session. Why you're here, what you learn, you get to know the hosts, philosophy behind our programs, and where you should go from here, and know how you can join the community, how we introduce today's speaker, and we get to know other things from there. So quickly, all right. So why you're here? Of course, you're here to learn from Sayak Paul, your first machine learning project. So it's a project for both beginners and practitioners alike. So you're a beginner, you've been learning, and you want to see how you can apply your learning to solve a problem or work on a project. This is perhaps a space for you. And of course, if you're a practitioner, you want to see how you can incorporate even more good methodologies and best practices into your processes for building projects. I think it's also a space for you as well. So, yeah. All right, so before we go on, first off, our advice for beginners in machine learning, when you come into sections like this, it's always just we have like three tips we give. So we tell you, look, take notes of the terms you don't understand. So grab a notepad, grab a pen, or grab your notepad, Evernote on your desktop or phone or wherever you can really store notes there. So you take notes of the terms you don't understand from this particular session from your speaker during the session. Of course, just take note of those terms because they will be highly crucial for the next step. Of course, the next step will be for you to research on those terms, and engage the community on social media. I really love the AI community on social media. I mean, you tweet at some experts who you don't even really expect to get responses from, and in about a couple of minutes, and so you're getting responses from them, and you're asking a question, and they're giving you feedback in real time. So it's particularly amazing the AI community. So I would urge you to take notes of those terms you don't understand from this session, then research on those terms, and of course the speaker definitely will be willing to get questions answered and show you the right steps there. So the next thing, of course, is you should really, in fact, this is not just for beginners, it's also for the full spectrum of AI practitioners, beginners, intermediate, and advanced persons. Take on best practices and good methodologies as much as you can because these are perhaps some of the highest points you'd really get as practitioners, by the way. So best practices from today's speaker, who is of course an expert. So best practices and good methodologies, please take them home as much as you can from the session. All right, so let's quickly go into the next one. So of course, what you learn. So in this session, in the Sayak session, you get to learn how you can think about problem statements, how you can really frame problems for machine learning. You also get to learn about the challenges you encounter for your first machine learning project, and of course, how you can overcome those challenges as well. Of course, you get to know the host and how much you should know before starting your first project. It's absolutely crucial that these are considerations you should have in place. Of course, things you should consider as well for your first machine learning and AI project, and how you can present the project for, and get feedback. Putting out your project in the wild and so on. It's very very impressive. So briefly, let's just run over this before we go on. Just get to know us. So of course, the host for this particular session, series of sessions, by the way, that have been going on. You can check our channel for past sessions with people like amazing experts like Aurelian Jerome and Dr. Sebastian Rashka, of course, who are best-selling authors in the AI and data science categories, of course. So, but just coming back to who we are Port Harcourt School of AI, and we can really check us out to know who we are at phcschoolofai.org. While we do this, of course, we have our annual reports. We try to make sure that we democratize this technology, and of course, what we do. So let me just go quickly on who we are. So we're a non-profit social organization whose mission really is to build a competent and collaborative AI and data learning community in order to solve local societal problems, and of course improving people's standard of living. We take all these key considerations. We want to make sure that the people we are trying to make sure that we are making AI technology, AI data technologies, and learning education per se accessible for people in more of a community learning style, community learning manner, where everyone is willing to share. No one a rock star, everyone is a mentor for every other person, and making sure that we create an empathetic community where people are willing to share knowledge, but we prioritize competency as well over competency and collaboration. And as well, we try to see a way we can provide opportunities to improve people's standard of living with the technology as well. All right, so the next thing, why we do this, of course, to really make River State, of course, which is the state we are in Nigeria. Port Harcourt is a city in River State in Nigeria. To make River State data driven and a hub of competent and collaborative AI talents. That's pretty much why we bring about these opportunities for our members and, of course, for away from Port Harcourt in the entire globally in every sense. But our focus is on Port Harcourt because that's where we are located and trying to just make sure we provide the right impact and belief among people there. So, all right, so what we do, so as a non-profit, we are actively working on actualizing the Sustainable Development Goal 4 of inclusive education. We try to see means whereby we can make AI and data education inclusive for everyone in our community and even away from our community because that's really what it's all about. How this network of people who are talented and people who are just getting started can synchronize together without any harmony or sorry, without harm. Sorry, without harm or of some sort. So we offer various programs that help our vision of democratizing AI education and by creating equal and accessible opportunities for members interested in AI and data technology, which of course are the core of what we do. So our story so far, you can learn about us, our report. You can get our report here, and of course on our Twitter. On Twitter, we are PHC School of AI. You can search us on Twitter. We tweet most of our activities as well. So quick on the philosophy behind our program. So um, the learners we envision at the end of the programs, any program we run at all at the community are the people who can actually serve as leaders. The need for learners to really take personal responsibility for their growth because we prioritize competency a lot, and as well as the growth of others, of course, because we prioritize collaboration too. Then empathetic problem solvers, the need for learners to be passionate to always be passionate about solving society's most worrisome problems. Yeah, so I'll just keep that. All right, so here we are really here for you and the value you can get from here. So where you should go from here? Okay, okay. All right, so where you should go from here actually after the session, of course. We expect that after this session, you decide, of course, to join an AI learning community in your region, wherever you are, whether you're in India, Mumbai, whether you're in Nigeria here, whether you're in Rwanda, or wherever you are all over the world. We expect that you join an AI and data learning community. And if there's none there, you should actually create one and start a revolution in your region. That's absolutely important. And of course, you explore more on today's topic for today's session. Like I said, as much as you can, take notes. And of course, we have some links in the description as well. Of course, we don't provide links to direct resources, but we also just to make sure that you get some additional resources to pull through from today's session. Yeah, so of course, get started. If you've not started your career journey in AI, get started. If you've not started your first project in AI, after today's session, get started. And that's really a very, very important thing. I'm going to get to one of Sayak Paul's, of course, today's speaker, favorite quotes. And I think it will inspire you to get started as well. So the next thing, please ask questions on Twitter. Follow the right people, follow the right feed. You can start off by following Port Harcourt School of AI on Twitter. And of course, the Twitter algorithm can connect you to to the right people in the AI space as well from following us. So get in touch with experts and of course the general AI community members there. Then one absolutely crucial thing you should do again is please read Sayak's interview. And this interview can be found on our blog at blog.phcschoolofai.org. But you can get this direct link from here as well to the interview with Sayak Paul. We had an interview with him, so he provided absolutely amazing insights for both beginners and advanced practitioners alike. Insights like how you can be world class, how yeah, the pointers for being a world class machine learning engineer, and of course, there's advice for beginners like you in the space as well. So, okay, so you can also join us. You can join our community at the Port Harcourt School of AI. We have a Slack channel as well, of course, our Twitter account. So join dash PHC SOAI is the Slack channel. So we get active soon, as soon as next month. Yeah, we'll get active soon enough. So, but it's not just Port Harcourt School of AI. There are lots of other amazing communities out there. In Nigeria, we have the top and leading community, which of course is arguably in Africa as well. We have Data Science Nigeria. It's an amazing organizational community. I figure you should join. There are also lots of other communities like AI Saturdays and amazing communities like GDE, and wherever you find yourself, just make sure that you Google search and look for active AI communities in your region. And like I said, if there are no active AI communities, please start one. Of course, if you're in Port Harcourt or River State or in Nigeria, you can look to join our community as well. There's no harm in being in one or more than one community. Yeah. So next step. So let's note this session's facilitators. All right. So your speaker for today is Sayak Paul. Sayak Paul is a deep learning associate at PyImageSearch, where he uses deep learning to solve real-world computer vision problems, and absolutely crucial. So Sayak Paul is also one of the most, should I say, one of the smartest AI engineers I really know out there, because I follow his tutorials and blogs a lot personally, and I use them to grow my career and my skills as well. So he is also a Google developer expert in machine learning, which also certifies a lot of things. And is interested, so much interested in community building, which is also inspiring as well. So, of course, get started in machine learning. His topic today will be for you to get started in machine learning, building your first machine learning project as well. And of course, this is Sayak's LinkedIn page, so you can connect with him on LinkedIn. He's also on Twitter at Rising Sayak as well. So, but you can come check his experience later on. He also worked with prior to that. He also worked with Data Camp and for data worked on Data Camp's project, and also he has a book coming up on deep learning on practice, hands-on Python deep learning for web as well. An AI writer at Floyd Hub, which is such lots of amazing experiences from today's speaker, and I'm really excited to be learning from one of the smartest AI engineers out there. Yeah, so without further ado, I think we can go to Sayak's session. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you after the session. Cheers.
Okay. I think I'm visible. My screen is visible and I'm audible as well. Yeah, cool. Okay. So Stephen, are we good to go? I'm waiting for your final call.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Stephen, you might want to mute the YouTube stream because there is an echo. Cool. Okay. So yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for joining in. And thanks to Stephen for the wonderful introduction, not just about me. He covered a lot about communities and stuff, and I really admire the kind of work Stephen is doing for growing the communities out there in Nigeria. It's really endearing for me to see the kind of efforts that Stephen is trying to uh, drive for the betterment of machine learning and artificial intelligence related developments out there. So my heart goes out to all the brave souls like Stephen who are really doing great work for the upliftment of communities like this. So Stephen, you are doing amazing work, and I'm really thankful to all the organizers for inviting me today. Thanks for having me here today. I'm really I'm really grateful, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks everyone for joining in. So I'll reintroduce myself probably. I'm a deep learning associate at PyImageSearch. I work at the intersection of computer vision and deep learning. That's for my introduction part. And without further ado, let's get started. Uh, so to set the expectations first, this talk is not about the ones that are yet to start their journeys in machine learning, but I believe the talk is ideal for someone who has already started their journey in machine learning and looking for ways to put their learnings in practice in form of a capstone project, which they can, include proudly in their resumes. So we'll be talking about a lot of different stuffs that can go into building your first successful machine learning project as a beginner or intermediate level machine learning practitioner, whatever you call it. And along the way, if you have any questions, please keep on noting them. I'll be definitely doing a small Q&A after my session ends, if time permits, definitely. So yeah, let's get started. So part of the motivation behind putting together this talk is coming from this guy. So for the ones that do not know Francois Chalet, you absolutely should know about him if you are uh, in the machine learning field. So Francois Chalet is a software engineer at Google. Also, he he's the author of the popular deep learning framework called Keras. So he says, I think an important part of life satisfaction is to find the things that really motivate you and pursue them uncompromisingly. You won't do great work by constantly forcing yourself to do things that don't genuinely excite you. So I absolutely concur with the words that Francois stated here. And also, the second part is really important. If you have not found it yet, keep exploring. It's okay that you are not, finding web development or machine learning to be very interesting. So it's okay, you just explored the fields and you did not like them. But the idea is to keep exploring, keep honing your skills up. So that's the idea. And also, these words actually motivated me to put together this talk in the first place. And also, this talk is kind of a kind of an amalgamation of the learning experiences that I have gathered over the years. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun and it's going to be useful for you as well. So let's start by discussing the challenges that might, come when you are starting to put together your first project in machine learning, which you can proudly show off with the world, right? So let's start with the challenges. So the first point is, how much should I know before I start my machine learning project? Because machine learning is very vast, right? I'm not trying to overwhelm you, I'm not trying to make you feel intimidated, but it's important to know that machine learning is a very vast field. It's quite interdisciplinary in its own course. So when you are starting machine learning, that introduction part might be very overwhelming in the first place. So you might be questioning yourself, uh, the field is very vast, how much should I exactly know before I start my machine learning project? Because the field is very vast, right? Am I supposed to know everything before I start my machine learning project? So there are some challenges, before you start your machine learning project, and in my experience, this challenge is one of the most major ones, I would say. So again, these challenges are the challenges that we are going to be discussing today. These are very generic ones, and I believe these would cater to a broad set of audience. So so the second challenge is, I already mentioned that machine learning is quite interdisciplinary, right? You have data science, you have linear algebra, you have programming and stuff like that. So you know so how you should prioritize on your learning experience in the first place. Do you need to be an absolute master of computer programming? Do you need to be an absolute master of statistics? Do you need to be an absolute master of linear algebra and stuff like that? So when you start to combine all of this together in one little block of application, things might start to feel very overwhelming in the first place. So how to not get overwhelmed and keep pushing your learnings forward and stuff like that. So we'll be discussing some of the approaches to tackle challenges like this. Okay. So the next challenge is you know choosing a problem statement that works well with the machine learning tools and techniques. It's very hard because you might not want to use a hammer to kill a rat, right? Let's say you are dealing with an application that's based on library management systems and stuff like that. So you wouldn't want to use machine learning to solve such problems. This is why coming up with a problem statement that's friendly for machine learning, it's not very trivial. So we'll discuss how to choose problem statements that are friendly for machine learning related technology categories and stuff, so that you have a systematic approach towards it. So this is the last challenge that I think it's very generic, but it's very effective. So there can be lots of moving parts in a project in general. It's not about machine learning projects to be particular. It can be a traditional software engineering project as well, but be it any real lots of moving parts. So when it comes to machine learning specifically, when it comes to a machine learning project specifically, so how do I prioritize on certain parts and put my focus solely there and ignore the rest of the things momentarily? So we'll be discussing some of the approaches along those lines as well. Okay, so we have talked about some generic challenges that you might face while you are uh, developing your first project in machine learning. But before we proceed, I would like to quickly see if we have got any questions. Steven, will you be facilitating the questions from YouTube? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Okay, sure, fair enough. So yeah, I can hear you. I'll proceed then. So now that we do not have any questions, luckily, unluckily, whatever you would say, let's talk about the solutions. So the first challenge that we had discussed a while ago was how much machine learning project, right? So my idea here is to you don't need to know everything before you start your project, but just the basic concepts should be enough. For example, for when it comes to the fundamentals of machine learning, what I really call basic neural networks work. So if you really understand these kind of fundamental concepts well, then I personally think you are pretty much good to proceed with what it takes to develop your first machine learning project. But make sure you understand this basic fundamental concepts really well, and do not just study them, or do not just write the equations. Be sure to study some open source pythonic implementations of these algorithms, or just experiment with them. Just spice them up, play around with them, execute them on your own, and see how the results are coming up. Are they coming out to be consistent with what you had studied in the books or in the courses and stuff like that. And it's okay, if you fail to implement it from scratch, it's okay to take help from the community. That's why these communities exist. So it's okay, but be sure to understand the fundamental things really well, so that you are in a good place to start your first project. So the other thing that I follow is ratios. So I typically follow a 60 to 40% ratio. The ratio is the things that I already know is to the things that I would be knowing by developing the project. So it's okay if the ratio is kind of left skewed, because when I was a beginner, I still am a beginner, but when I was more of a beginner, then the ratio was quite skewed in the left side. It was kind of like 10 is to 90, or I would say 20 is to 80, meaning 20% of the things that the project would require that I already knew, but 80% of the things that were unknown to me. So it's okay, if the ratios are coming out like that. But now I tend to follow a ratio of 60 to 40, meaning that 60% of the things that would require me to develop this project, that I should be knowing about them, and rest of the things are unknown, and those would be my learning opportunities from the particular project I would work on. So feel free to come up with your own ratios and adjust them over time, because it's quite it's quite evident that as you would progress in your machine learning journey, the things of the number of things that are still unknown to you would keep on getting reduced. So feel free to give yourselves this kind of validation checks. Okay. So the next challenge was machine learning is interdisciplinary. How to not get overwhelmed. So you need to understand one simple thing here. You cannot really be a master of everything at one point in time. Uh, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but it's okay, if you do not understand uh, certain statistical concepts to their granular details. It's okay if you do not understand how a certain algorithm is working under the hood in scikit-learn. It's okay, because you cannot really be a master of everything at one point in time. So figure out what's still missing from your learning arsenal, and be sure to put some time aside and study them really well, so that you have that confidence that you would need, but as you would start implementing your own ideas that might be needed for the project itself. Yeah. So another thing is, focus on the basics that are still missing, and focus on the things that are relevant for executing the project. Because when it comes to machine learning, really, it's very easy to get distracted. So when you have already decided to uh, decided to develop a certain project in machine learning, it's important to stay focused and figure out what are the basic things that you are still missing for that are very essential for developing that project. So be very attentive, concentrate on your project in the first place, and figure out what are the basic things that are still missing, that would be required for developing the project in the first place. Okay. And also, don't rush your understanding out. As you are learning, be sure to take a step back and ask yourself questions. Why a certain thing is working like that, and if you are not understanding it, please feel free to ask your questions on the online communities that we have surrounding us, because if you are not asking questions, then you are not really doing justice to your learning journey. So it's okay if you are taking some time to understand a particular concept, but the idea here is to understand them really well. The fault is not when you fall into a river. The fault is if you stay submerged in it. So you really need to make sure your efforts are not going into vain. And a good way to do that is to understand the things that you're trying to understand, and understand them really well, by whatever means necessary, right? And you would now question me that how much understanding is really needed, because understanding comes at a different level, of course. So when you are starting as a machine learning practitioner, your understanding of gradient descent might be different when you would progress deeply as a machine learning practitioner. So you would argue, when I'm a beginner, how much understanding is needed? So here's how I deal with it. So the understand certain things to only an extent that's enough for you to convince yourself, because always keep in mind that understanding can always be iterated. For example, let's say when you are starting, you might be taking Andrew Young's course on machine learning, the famous Stanford course on Coursera. So maybe you used Andrew's intuition of how gradient descent works, and you used Andrew's intuition to make yourself convinced about that particular concept. But as you progressed in your machine learning journey, your understanding, might get updated with more materials that you would study and stuff. But when you are starting, with any concept, understand it to a certain level that's enough for you to convince yourself. Just keep this in mind, right? Because you will have to agree that understanding can always be iterated with better materials, with better experimentation and stuff like that. And lastly, this is one of my favorite tweets, and this tweet was made by Andrew Trask, who is a PhD student at the Oxford University, and he also leads the organization called Open Mind. So try to find the meaning of certain machine learning concepts by really experimenting with them, because there goes this saying called machine learning is more of an alchemy than science. So it's really important to experiment with the things that you are learning. Not might not be all of them, but take some of the concepts that you are learning and try to put them in action, so that your understanding is both practical and theoretically justified. And the third challenge that we discussed was what problem statement do I choose for the project, because you know uh, as I mentioned, because choosing framing a problem statement that would go well with machine learning it's not very trivial. So here are some ideas along those lines. So try identifying the problems in your surroundings, the places you visit, the platforms that you use, and so on. So I can definitely give an example here. So I used to, work with data camp in the past. So data camp has this community section where one can share, or write about data science and machine learning related tutorials and stuff. So I had written a couple of tutorials for data camp community specifically. So these community sections let you add certain comments on your articles, so that's a good thing, I would say. But as we were experimenting with a spam comment classification system that was very specific to data camps community section, and maybe it might be a fun weekend project. So I reached out to one of my university juniors and asked him whether notes of my deck, and I will share the slides after the session is ended. So no worries there. And another project that I had worked on is this one. So I use archive for for reading research papers on machine learning, and archive is quite popular among the research community or machine learning community in general. It has a lot of different sections, I would say, but the machine learning and computer vision and natural language processing, these sections are very popular. So you would find most of the cutting edge machine learning research that are happening today, they are mostly open sourced on archive. So so I was thinking maybe what if I could build a system that would take an archive paper title, for example, this one. I would let it load first. So by archive paper title, I mean this only this section. Maybe what if I could build a system that would take an archive paper title, and it would give me the category to which this particular paper would belong to. So if you go here, so if you go here, so you would see there are categories here. For example, this paper simclr paper belongs to cs.lg, and it also belongs to cs.cv, and it also belongs to stats.ml. So what if my system would take input as as a title like this one, and it would help me predict what would be the potential categories the paper would belong to. So I had worked on a system like this before, and I have linked to that project in my speaker notes as well. So the point I'm trying to convey here is, all of the two mediums that I just shared, datacamp community and archive, are the are kind of the platforms that I use on a regular basis. So that's why I was able to identify a certain problem or a certain barrier, and I was able to act on it to be able to come up with at least a decent solution. So it's important to take a look at to take a look at your surroundings and maybe the platforms that you use, and figure out the problems that are solvable using machine learning. So if you are more interested in a formal course on how to frame problem statements for machine learning, I have linked a course on my deck as well. Feel free to check it out. It's by Google, and it's amazing. Also, it's a very good idea to participate in kaggle competitions and put your learnings in practice, because it's a very intelligent practice, I would say. But there's a but there. Don't chase the leaderboard, because kaggle competitions come with a leaderboard, and there can be erroneous techniques that one might adapt to lead the leaderboard in the first place, and do not focus on the learning part. But don't let that happen to you. Always focus on the bigger picture, right? Because you might you a, generally a kaggle competition comes with a problem statement. So your goal should be on the problem statement first when you are learning things, because that can help you to put together a nice project out of that particular kaggle competition. And who knows, you will be able to share that with the world proudly. So always focus on the bigger picture, maybe the problem that the kaggle competition is trying to cater to, and then take the data set and try to build something cool around it, and also something beneficial around it. And if you are more interested in learning about applying machine learning in creative ways, here's an amazing resource for you. I have linked that as well on my deck. Okay, so we have talked about some challenges and the solutions of before start to execute your first machine learning project. Now let's imagine we are already inside the execution phase. Let's imagine we are already executing our first machine learning project. So there can be some challenges there in that particular phase as well. So I would now like to discuss some of those and some of the approaches you can take to alleviate them. Okay. So as I mentioned before, there can be lots of moving parts in a particular machine learning project, no matter if it's your first project or if it's your 15th project and stuff. There can be lots of moving parts, right? So to help remedy that, I find it very consistent to to follow a certain sequential flow, because a machine learning project can be grouped in terms of these 5 different steps. And although these 5 steps are very typical, but they're highly useful if you are wanting to follow a definite sequential framework for executing your machine learning project. So it helps me to validate my project's status, where I am currently at my project. Maybe I'm currently at the data transformation phase, or maybe currently I'm training my machine learning models, or maybe I'm just defining the machine learning problem in the first place. So be sure to ask yourself questions about the status of the project, so that you can set definitive and achievable goals, and ultimately come up with a better version of your project in the end. So yeah. Also, data is, of course, undeniably the better half of any machine learning model, as we all would agree, I believe. So how do I collect data, right? Let's say you decided to work on a problem statement for which there isn't any data set existing. It can happen. It's absolutely fine. There isn't any already available data set for the problem that you might have chosen for your project. So how do I collect data in the first place? So there are lots of sources that you should definitely try first. uh, Kaggle is amazing source. Another online resources like Google's dataset search and stuff like that. Maybe you are looking for a data set of Zomato restaurant reviews and stuff. Maybe you could use web scraping to scrape some Zomato reviews and put together a nice data set out of them. Or the worst case is just manually collecting the data, right? Because there isn't any uh, open data sets yet for a number of different domains. For example, medicine is very medicine is a very crucial domain where machine learning is getting applied rapidly, but there aren't any open data set, so to speak, in that particular domain. So there can be instances where you might need to manually collect the data that is from different sources. For example, let's say hospitals or different factories. Might be so feel free to but feel free to first go through the data sets that are already existing, and if they are not existing in the first place, then you will have to go with the crude method of either web scraping them or manually collect them using whatever means. Right, but there can be some situations where a data set might not be directly available to you for the problem statement that you are working on, but the data set might closely resemble what you are working on. So let's say this project that I just showed, generating titles. Okay. So when I was thinking about this particular project, generative categories for from archive paper titles, I was I was not finding any data set that was in a format that I wanted. So, but fortunately, I found this archive data set on Kaggle, which closely resembled what I was looking for. So I took that data set and I designed it according to my needs. So feel free to explore the data sets and look for opportunities if you can use that data set to transform it in a format that would support the development of your projects. And it's a very important skill to have as a machine learning practitioner, I would say. Okay. Let's see. And as I mentioned, is there a similar data set available? Always ask yourself this question before before proceeding towards manual collection of data or web scraping or whatever. And it's at most important for you to understand your data really well before you feed your data to a machine learning model, because there can be a number of irregularities and there can be number of commonalities in your data, which should be able to help you to choose your machine learning models accordingly. And who knows, your data might contain noise, so you need to take extra care to be able to handle that noise, right? And maybe your data is imbalanced. So if you do not know about these traits of your data set, then if your machine learning model fails, you would not be able to debug it effectively. So it's very important to clear any doubts you might have on your data and understand the data set really well. So here's an article along those lines that might help you. It walks through different strategies you might want to take for your data understanding practices. Okay. So now comes my most favorite piece of the cake, that's machine learning modeling. And who doesn't like to build and train machine learning models, right? So yeah, and there can be certain nuances while you are developing your machine learning models, and in this section we'll be basically discussing about them. So first question is, which machine learning model should I consider for my project, right? But you should be knowing about this theorem called no freelance theorem in machine learning. So the idea here is you cannot really say which model is gonna work for your particular problem statement that you are working on without the virtue of experimentation. Let's say you have random forest model, you have logistic regression model, you have support vector machine. Without experimenting it on the minimal version of your data set, you cannot really say that support vector machine is gonna work the best out of all the models that I have considered, right? So be sure to experiment with the different models to validate your assumptions. And how do I train a model? There are different training paradigms and methodologies for training varieties of different machine learning models. So which method I should follow while I'm training a particular model? So there can be ultra specific questions under this section. How can I train my model faster? Maybe your model is taking 8 hours of time for getting trained. You might want to reduce the total training time of your model to save up some configuration cost and infrastructure cost and stuff. So maybe you could take a look at your data data input pipeline, because most of the times your model might be highly IO bound. That is, your model might be waiting for the data to arrive. So you might want to focus on building, you might want to focus on speeding up your data input pipeline so that your model in turn trains faster. And how can I train it better? Maybe your model is not showing good training behavior, so how can I train it better? There are a number of different good training techniques for neural networks specifically. So your aim, if you are not getting good training behavior from your machine learning models, be sure to search over the existing problems that the community had already faced, and be sure to try out some suggestions that you might find on Kaggle discussions or different forums out there. And model validation is a very broad topic, I would believe, and I would also suggest model validation. But model validation differs from problem statement to problem statement. So training accuracy might not be the best model validation technique for the problem that you are working on. I'm not suggesting it's not a good validation technique, but it might not be the best way to validate your model for the problem statement that you are working on, right? Maybe you are working with an imbalanced data set, and it might so happen that recall and precision are far more better matrices than training accuracy. So you will have to consider the traits of your data set and the problem statement in the first place to be able to figure out a proper way to validate your machine learning model. And machine learning systems are really very hard to debug, right? Because they are very different from traditional software engineering systems. And uh, and I think by now you know how they are different. And so the idea about going to debug your machine learning model, I generally tend to not leave a scope to debug my machine learning model, because I follow the philosophy of not making mistakes in the first place. Because if you change or if you nudge a small hyperparameter in your machine learning model, your model's performance can drastically reduce, right? Your, or let's say your model's performance can drastically change. So it can get harder when you deal with a lot of hyperparameters in your for your machine learning model. So it and many a times what I have seen is hyperparameter values are not really the source of why my model is not behaving uh, as expected. So in those cases, it really gets very hard to debug when a machine learning model fails, because it can fail you real silently, right? It will not give you any errors like array index out of bounds or not implemented error or not found error and stuff like that. So it's the idea is to not make silly mistakes in the first place and be really attentive while you are developing the final steps for be it for your model training or for your data pre-pricing and stuff like that. And here's an amazing course by Google again, which walks you through the fundamental debugging practices that are very helpful for debugging machine learning systems. So let's say you are now done writing your machine learning modeling code. You have successfully trained your machine learning model. It's performing well. Now before you proceed towards sharing your project with the world, here's something that you might want to consider. So ask yourself questions like, uh, does my model integrate well with other systems like web application or a mobile application or a Raspberry Pi even? So I have a trained model now. What do I do about it, right? Because if you do not use it for uh, developing something truly productive or beneficial, the trained model, it's of no use. You need to be able to test its applicability with other systems like a web application or a mobile application or a Raspberry Pi, and the possibilities are really endless here. And it also will open up a lot of collaboration opportunities for you. Let's say you are not that good into you are not into let's say mobile application development or web development and stuff like that. You might want to reach out to your mobile application developer friend and say, hey, I have trained a machine learning model and it's capable of doing this. Will you be willing to use this machine learning model in a website, and help me showcase the use of this model? So it opens up a number of different collaboration opportunities for as well. And it ultimately helps you to present your project in a better way. And there are lots of other components of a particular machine learning project, not just that particular machine learning training code. And here's a figure that shows you the different different components of a machine learning project with respect to their importance. So I'm sure you are having a hard time figuring out where the machine learning code is actually. Yeah. So you might want to, after you are done with your machine learning modeling code, you might want to pick one of these things out and focus really well, so that you have something other to work on as well when you are done integrating the machine learning part of your project, so that your project stands out really well. So when you would present your project to your future employer, maybe you would be in a place to say, hey, look, I did not only focus on the machine learning part, but I made sure I am also uh, I'm also taking care of the other things that are equally important in a machine learning project. So the idea is simply that it will only give you advantage, nothing else. So let's say now you are done integrating all the different pieces of your project. You are kind of done collaborating with your web developer friend or mobile application developer friend, and now it's the time to let the world know about your project. But how to do that, right? Let's discuss some of the pointers along these lines. So when you are, I'm sure you will be using a version control system like GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab, but I find GitHub to be the best one among all the other choices. So when you are, and it's also very important to version control your code, and it's a good practice. It's a genuinely good practice. So when you are structuring your code repository, be sure to structure it really well. So be sure to include a proper readme, which would include a demo of your project, because that will help anyone understand what the project is all about, right? Be sure to put all the little nitty gritty details of your project in the readme, and if possible, try to always include a demo of your project in terms of videos or in terms of pictures or whatever you find necessary. And also structure your code directories really well, so that it appears well structured and well cleaned up, right? And here's a reference structure that you might want to follow, and this is inspired from Josh Tobin, and it really is a very well structured project repository, I would say. And time to time I tend to refer to it and use it in my own projects as necessary. Okay. And also it's a good idea to put out a blog on your project and put all the nitty gritty details uh, about your project in that particular blog. Maybe it might be just a clone of the project readme, but if you create a blog piece separately on your project, if it's really interesting, then it also acts as an added advantage to where you would explain certain things. What are the challenges that you faced while executing your project? How did you go about solving those challenges and stuff like that? So the idea is to pour all of your heart and write about all the things that are really relevant to your project. So it's important. It's not important, I would say. It's always advantageous to supply your project with a nicely structured and written blog article. So here are some, if you have got any cool projects and if you want to showcase them in form of a blog, here are some paid writing opportunities for you, and if you are interested, feel free to reach out to me and share your project with the communities. I'm sure Stephen has already shared a number of communities with you already. So it's important to share your project with the communities around you and have feedback. So here's some very popular machine learning and deep learning communities. Kaggle is one of my favorites. When I create a cool project, or I implement a particular research paper, I tend to share those on Kaggle forums to have constructive feedback, or to know how well did I do and stuff. AIDL Facebook group is another uh, is in fact one of the largest Facebook groups on this field. And Twitter is an amazing place to share about your work as well, because most of the machine learning and deep learning researchers or practitioners, they are on Twitter. They are constantly sharing about their work, or the work that they are currently studying and stuff. So Twitter is another amazing place to share your work on. And fast AI forums, amazing, some very intelligent people hang around there, and it will give you a great opportunity, to have real feedback on your project. Okay. And I understand that your project might be very dear to you, it might be very favorite to you as well, but it's important to put your constructive hats on and be open to constructive feedback, because it will only help you to improve your project in the long run. And here are some departing thoughts. Figure out what really interests you, because machine learning is a huge field, right? You might want to focus on better data pre-processing techniques, you might want to focus on developing better training techniques, you might want to focus on model deployment and stuff like that. But it's important that you figure out what really interests you. And you might want to check out some of the interviews that I have done with with a number of machine learning practitioners and researchers, and get to know about their perspectives on this particular topic. So finally, discuss your work with like-minded people, because who knows, you might end up getting a cool project idea or cool improvement idea for your project. But if you discuss machine learning related things, or the things that you find interesting with like-minded people, it's generally very productive, right? It will not just help you to to focus on the areas that where you would need improvement, but it might also act as a feedback system for you as well. And finally, apply, learn, make mistakes and repeat, because I personally follow this philosophy a lot. That is, I apply stuff, I learn from my applications. And making mistakes is it's inseparable. It's important to make mistakes, not knowingly though. You can make mistakes unknowingly, and make sure you learn from them and repeat the entire process, because it's hard to not make any mistakes unknowingly, right? But yeah, those mistakes will act as an arsenal of experiences for you, which would make you learn, which would make you learn stuff and bring out a better version of yourself in the next time, right? And finally, just to finish it off in style, here's my pinned tweet. I'm always open to discussions around your machine learning project, or anything that you would like to discuss in this particular area. I'm always listening to you. I'm all ears. So the slide deck is available here. I have already shared this with Stephen, so if anyone needs it, I'm sure uh, you will be having the access to the deck whenever you would want to. I will also tweet the link from my Twitter profile. So yeah, and all of my coordinates are on my Twitter profile, be it my mail ID, or where do I live, where do I work on, and stuff like that. And with that, I would like to conclude, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, yeah, sure.
So, any questions from the audience? Anyone? any just a minute or two. Oh, the appreciations are already coming in. Thank you very much. Any other questions? If there are no questions, I think we'll round up. Like Sayak said, the AI community, it's one reason, one key reason why I love the AI community so much. It's a very open community. You could tweet at an expert, and in about less than few minutes, you're getting a response back, which is very, 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 very encouraging as a scientific and applied community as well. So once again, if you have any questions after this, maybe you're watching the recording or something of some sort, of course, you can reach out to Sayak on Twitter. Yes, of course, I'm
Yeah,
Rising Sayak. And this is his website as well. You can come reach out to him on LinkedIn, connect with him on LinkedIn, Twitter, ResearchGate, and so on. So that's if you're watching the recording. But if you don't have, in the absence of any question in this live session, I think I can um, hand over to Sayak for maybe the parting thoughts. Okay, so there's a question that came in.
yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So just to rephrase, Oba Steven states that he is interested in knowing if it would be favorable to try various fields in machine learning first and then focus on an interest. Do you think it would be favorable to try the different interdisciplinary fields of machine learning before focusing on a specific area in machine learning? What are your thoughts?
Uh, could you paste the question in the chat window so
Oh,
that
okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, just, you know.
Okay, I got the question. Would it be favorable to try various fields in ML before focusing on one uh, particular field of interest? Yeah, of course. Like, I would like to go back to the to my deck to answer this question. Uh, if you are willing to try out different things in the first place before switching to one specific thing, and it's absolutely fine. Keep exploring things, right? But be sure to invest your time in the thing that really motivates you. If it's not motivating you, keep exploring. It's absolutely fine. Like, it's not just coming from me, it's coming from good people who are, that have already done it. So yeah.
All right, so that's awesome. There hasn't been any other question, but once again, just not to play or be more of a recording tape per se. So if you have any questions, once again, you can always tweet at Sayak if you're watching the iCal. So
Yeah.
Sayak, do you have any departing thoughts once again?
Yeah, so just as I mentioned, the machine learning and AI communities in general are very inclusive and welcoming, I would say. Don't let any negative thoughts hover your mind. It's okay if you are not, getting overwhelmed when you are starting. The idea is to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, because always remember, anything in life that's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, and moderations for cowards. So if you really like one thing, keep doing it, keep pushing yourself further, keep pushing yourself further. There's no end to it. So, and I really admire what Stephen is driving to uplift the AI development in his region, and I'm sure you will be getting more and more hands and more and more good forces joining in your way. And with that, I think we are good to round.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So happy this actually ended in a good note. And once again, we had an interview session with Sayak Paul, and I think I'll probably have to just navigate to that. Yeah, so we had an interview. Come over to blog.phc schoolofai.org. Um, it's just a scroll or two from there. So you can read the interview sessions. And one thing I'm actually very excited about was the concluding thoughts he left with. So he quoted Thomas Wolfe of Hugging Face. Hugging Face, of course, is the amazing company using transformers for state-of-the-art NLP. So he quoted Thomas Wolfe of Hugging Face, and if you really love the field, you'll find your way into it. Don't worry. And I think that's a good note. I think we can finish off with. So without further ado, um, I think we all have a lot of things to do today. So without further ado, thank you so much, Sayak Paul, for this session. We really appreciate it as a community. And like I said, the AI community is something special. You reach out to people and they are willing to help, and that encourages us even more to go out to explore more in the space. So thank you so much, Sayak, for your time.
Of course.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you.
for having me, man.
Yeah,
Bye
all
bye.
right, thank you. Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much once again, and I think we can all have a great day.